Arsenal come streaming forward now in surely what will be their last attack. A good ball by Dixon, finding Smith. But Thomas charging through the midfield. Thomas, it's up for grabs now. Thomas, right at
the end. All right.
Hello and welcome to Gooners in the USA. Mike, how are you?
I am doing well. This is kind of a unique pod today. For the second week in a row, we're podding on Friday. We got no games to recap today, but a busy day in the world of Arsenal and this whole coaching situation, manager situation.
Seriously, if you watch the Game of Thrones series, this would be the equivalent of the Red Wedding.
Yeah, today,
everyone dies.
Today's what I call Black Friday. I mean, they always have this in the NFL and sometimes in other sports here in the States where the day after the season ends, it's Black Friday, firing after firing, sacking after sacking. And that's kind of what today was at Arsenal. But we wanted to get, in light of who we may be bringing in and who it's starting to kind of all point to maybe, we wanted to get the unique perspective of somebody who isn't coming from inside Arsenal world. Yeah, well, that too, because we generally don't. So we have a guest today on the podcast who we're happy to welcome in, Rocco Fasano. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the call up, boys.
Yeah, and Rocco is currently sitting in Toronto, but he's originally from the south part of Italy, I believe.
Yeah, southern Italy, southeastern Italy. The actual close to the city of Bari, which had a Serie A team until not too long ago, and they're battling for the playoffs. So it should be
excellent. well, he's lived Serie A. You blog and write for the Italian Football Daily, as well as From the Touchline, which covers the MLS, which. To me, living in Washington, D.C. means you'll surely be writing about how ridiculous it is that Wayne Rooney's about to come to my city and still not be the best player on the club that I have here, which is relegation bound if we had such a thing in North America.
Is it because Freddie Adu's the best player?
Freddie Adu, man, I've known him since he was 14, and the weird thing is he's still 14. He's 8'2", 400 pounds, and he's 14 years old. But yeah, DC United's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that like never. But Andy has a specific term he likes to use for certain European football leagues, like La Liga and Ligue 1. What is that term again, Andy?
It doesn't apply to this league, but I like to refer to them as a feeder league.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, does it apply to the Serie A?
No, Mike, I'm lucky enough to have been able to visit Italy a couple times, and I've always had a soft spot for their league. And I think I mostly joke about La Liga being the feeder league. That's
a piss take off of one specific person.
Right, no, but I feel like it's just one of those leagues that's always entertaining. They do so well in the European competitions. Obviously, the Italian national team is fun to watch, even though they always beat my beloved England. But
you don't have to worry about that this summer. Sorry, U.S. and Italy have something in common for one.
I don't think we can beat anyone recently, whether it's friendly or not.
The thing is, Mike, is even with Italy not in the World Cup, they could still knock out England, which just makes it all the worse.
That's exactly right. It'll be like a WWE thing. Like Italy just Belgium rips off their shirts and turns out it's Italy under there.
Yeah,
that's right. Comes out and slams you with a chair.
Exactly. So, what's the guy's name? His name's slipping my mind now. But there's a famous Italian wrestler. Anyway, you got to love any league where they call the league title the Scudetto. I mean, that is the coolest thing. I mean, what do you call the thing you win when you win the Premier League? Do you know, Andy? It's called the winning trophy thing for the Premier League. That's what it's called.
What's Italian Scudetto? What does that mean?
So it means shield. It means little shield, literally. And that's it is a shield that the winners wear on their jerseys the year after, so as an honor to show who the defending champion is. And of course, it has the Italian colors.
Because you're not just going after the title of champions; you're going after some actual thing that you get to. It's like kind of like again another WWE reference. It's like the title belt
Yeah, you go bragging rights, right?
Exactly. I mean, they need to have that in England, though. You got to be like chasing for 9 months after the Bob's Your Uncle or something like that. Got to come up with some British sounding little thing there. But anyway, I am a fan of Serie A. I don't see enough of it, but I recently was in Milan when Arsenal was traveling there and just absolutely loved the intensity and the passion. San Siro is one heck of a place. If you can make your way up those godforsaken the circular walkways of death.
Can I ask you guys a question? Actually, speaking of how Serie A and the Premiership and the relationship between the two, how long, if you guys have been following Serie A, have you been following the Premiership since its inception, which was, I believe, the early 1990s? You know, it's more recent incarnation. I suppose a small F feeder league can be used for Serie A, in the sense that there were a number of players that went to the Premiership in order to add some continental flavor to the league. That came from Serie A. We had Vialli, we had Casiraghi, we had Mancini, we had Zola. A lot of them ended up going to Chelsea, of course.
And I was going to say, I was going to say, I know so many people who are Chelsea supporters because of those Italian players that went over and played on that team specifically. And so, before the Chelsea got all the money, that's where I remember a lot of those players going and doing really well.
Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, the current or about to be crowned, if you want to use that term, Italian national team coach, Roberto Mancini, got his first start at coaching as a player coach at Leicester City, if I'm not mistaken, and many moons ago. So that's something to be a little bit of a stat there for you, and the relationship between the two. Always Italian players, or not Italian players, but players at least that played in Serie A that have gone to England have done almost always well. I also should mention Paolo Di Canio, who went to not England right away, but Scotland first.
He's one of my favorites.
But the other way around, we've had a series of failures. Probably the biggest among which was Ian Rush in the mid '80s at Juventus, who was a Welshman, not Englishman, but he came from the English league.
Yeah, he didn't quite reach Liverpool peaks over there, did he?
Right. No.
So we're on the eve of the final game of Arsene Wenger's 22-year tenure with Arsenal, and we're all pretty much sitting here now looking towards the future, and we need something new for the fan base to argue about and have civil war over. I mean, we can't just suddenly get along. So everyone's looking at, well, who will the next manager be? The current odds, the last time I looked, Brendan Rodgers was 14-1. No, thank you. Carlo Ancelotti 9-1. We've had some pretty spirited debates about that. Luis Enrique 8-1. Arteta's 7-2, and we've got Massimiliano Allegri, which I'm sure I'm not doing any credit to the name, is 6-4 favorite, and it may even be lower than that right now. So not only are the odds suggesting Allegri's on his way, but every ITK and their mothers, who are all under 40 years of age, as it turns out, they're suggesting that the agreement in principle has already been done, which I don't technically believe it has been. But and then adding to the speculation is what happened today. I mean, Andy, take us through basically what happened today and why that impacts who we think our next coach is.
So end of the season meeting, and we saw pretty much the entire back room staff get let go, fired, given severance, except for Bold and Lehman.
And one other who we thought was fired, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it sounds like Bibbo's. It sounds like it's going to be a restructure of his contract. Mike, there's no surprise that this has happened because with a new manager, obviously there's new coaching assignments, and it leads me to believe that the deal in principle is complete because if it was Allegri, for example, any of those gentlemen that you've mentioned, they're going to come with certain backroom staff. And if you're Allegri and hey, these two guys have been with me for quite some time, I'm bringing them with. It's just what's going to happen. as we've said for the last couple podcasts now, or at least my belief is that Bold wouldn't have been let go because it appears that he's going to need to bridge the new manager, whoever it is, with the players. And I don't see – it's interesting, Mike, that the two Arsenal legends are the two that have remained. And I could see Lehmann being given the head coaching position for the goalkeepers. Now, with that being said, there's a caveat that the two aren't aware of their positions yet or titles, and maybe they don't want those titles or positions when this new manager comes in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't believe they would have shit-canned everyone without knowing that they had their two top candidates ready to go. And it sounds like we're going to find out next week who they are.
I mean, I would have to imagine it'll probably be Monday morning. I don't know that it'll be Sunday afternoon after the the game ends, but it'll probably be Monday morning. But Rocco, this gets to the crux of where we really wanted to pick your brain. We got in touch with each other over Twitter this week when you posted and kind of announced you were going to be posting an article for Italian Football Daily, which is a great, concise, orderly review of Max Allegri from a Juve supporter's perspective. And we've been talking about Allegri in these kind of like most people are just dying to have him come to Arsenal because of the success that he's had at Juve. And it's just these, but I don't know that a lot of Arsenal supporters really know the man and what his positives and negatives are, which is why we wanted to have you on, because it's all fine and good to speculate over whether you want a newbie like Arteta taking over or a guy like Allegri who's done Champions League finals and domestic doubles. But, I just really thought it would be good to get your feedback. So kind of start approaching this from the outside. With everything you know at this point, on a scale from like 1 to 10, basically, how likely do you feel it is that Allegri is going to be announced as Arsenal's next gaffer at some point in the next couple of weeks?
Well, to be completely honest, it's not certain at this point that he will leave Juventus.
You think that much is certain?
That it's not 100% certain that he's going to leave. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
But he's always said, and of course these are circumstantial kind of statements, that he has a contract to honor that was extended last June until 2020. And if anything, I think more than anything, it's not even so much that he's grown tired of the environment, but I think that he realizes, the fans realize, maybe the club might realize, and the team, the actual roster, that it's time for someone else to breathe in some fresh oxygen, some new energy at Juventus. So it wasn't because he's failed as a coach. It's just sometimes relationships go stale after so long, and I think, you guys as Arsenal fans might be able to appreciate that since you've had a coach for 22 years. I can't remember the number of times I've seen Wenger out as a hashtag. People have grown, people grow tired after a while. And, he's presided, to be honest, just looking back at the history of Allegri as a coach, he's presided over a fairly big transition at Milan, when so many veterans left. We had, the 1 year, Inzaghi, Gattuso, Kaká, Seedorf, and Nesta all left at the same time. And perhaps he doesn't want to fall victim to the same kind of trap, if you want to call it that, with the likes of Buffon, Lichtsteiner, and Asamoah, and potentially Marquinhos, and maybe some other players dropping out, some of that hardcore of the team dropping out, and pure, Juventini at heart. You might have a bit of too much chaos, right? Too much forming, too much storming. Something that a coach that's already established may have trouble with, right? And it's something that they always throw. Juventus management has thrown a lot of changes on 3-4 different players changed. Over the course, major players change over the course of 1 or 2 years. Pogba and Vidal and Tevez and Pirlo, etc. And one of his great qualities is the ability to take what he's given and to mold mold something into not necessarily a winner, but into something, into a team that is able to achieve results. And he's been, and this is much to his credit. So having said that, we don't know for sure that he is leaving. One thing we do know is that what type of a coach, what type of a man he is, and he's a patient man. He's someone who believes in balance, someone who believes in gradual growth and incremental change. And he's tactically, he's a pragmatist. Like, he's not someone who's going to come in a la Guardiola and say, no, listen, we're going to change. You're going to play the way I say. You know, the way I liken someone like Guardiola to someone like Allegri, or someone who's a pragmatist, is a pragmatist. You will give him a lemon orchard, and the pragmatist will grow the lemons. He'll squeeze them. He'll make some good lemonade for you and get some results. Someone like Guardiola, you give him a lemon orchard. He'll burn it down. He'll plant oranges. He'll grow oranges. And then, like 2 or 3 years later, you'll be drinking some sweet orange juice.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got
That's
you have to wait that long. But you have to wait that long. Yeah,
I love that.
So that's the difference. That's the difference, really. He's not. If you guys are expecting champagne football, and I understand that Arsenal was known in the more recent, especially under the Wenger era, in different phases, as playing beautiful football. Allegri will, and it might just be his Italian experience, because I don't know, once he goes to England, maybe the air will change and will change him, rather. But he prefers results over beautiful gameplay. And in Italy, Italian football is very results oriented. Unlike their government. Very, very results oriented as far as football is concerned, especially with a demanding fan base like Juventus is. So,
and I don't think I speak for all Arsenal supporters in this, but I know that a growing number of Arsenal supporters who did fall in love with Arsenal even during the champagne football time, and that's not everybody. There's tons of us, both of us included, who fell in love with Arsenal well before Arsene Wenger was ever even mentioned or around, growing up with the team. But, I think people would favor a pragmatist who is focused on winning over champagne football that eventually kind of gets old and stale and the game passes it by. And I think at this point, seeing what's happened over the past 9 or 10 years, where at times the football's been beautiful, at times it's been wholly inept, and the results haven't been there on the massive scale, on the league scale, on the European scale. I mean, FA Cups are nice, but it doesn't show improvement of your team. Your team can still be regressing and win FA Cups, and that's exactly what's been happening at Arsenal. I think that's that what you've just described of Allegri is what is so tasty to people, because they want someone who just says, I'm not going to listen to the hype. I'm not going to try to please people. I'm going to try to win.
Mm-hmm. And to be completely honest, there is a bit of a funny dynamic that Allegri will have to adjust to, and that is, by and large, in England, we have coaches who are also, for all intents and purposes, GMs, general managers, if you'll pass me the term. And this is something that he's used to taking. He's very much a company man. Very much will take orders and will carry them out to a T. He's like, these are the players that we're buying you. He's not someone who, unlike Conte at Chelsea or anywhere else, will complain or will air out dirty laundry publicly and say, make ambiguous statements that are veiled in a veiled way. Will say something. Will send a message to management.
Yeah, you get that all the time in the Premier League.
Such and such a player, should not be sold. Or, what can I do? As Conte said once, was very famous for saying, you can't sit down at a €100 restaurant with €10 in your pocket. That was basically slamming management and saying, you're not Juventus management. You're not buying me the right type of players, the right kind of players I want in order to to do well in the Champions League, right? And then in comes Allegri the very next year. They buy him, a bunch of good players, and he goes to the Champions League final, which is funny enough. So he's a company man, is what I'm trying to say. And long story short, if the orders are, in the medium term, to make the Champions League berth, to gain a Champions League berth spot, then that's something definitely that he will be able to focus in on. And obviously you can't guarantee that he will achieve that, but definitely will try to make it. And he uses, as I said, he's a patient man, he's a balanced man. He puts a lot of weight on that, and will try to design the season in such a way that if you want to go far in all three or four major competitions, then he will dose the energy that way and make sure that the team gets to the end with gas in their tank.
He likes to rotate. Is that fair to say?
He definitely rotates among the better coaches are rotating. Having said that, everything that I'm saying is from within a context of Allegri at Juventus. Like, he's been successful because he's also been armed with the best, with the strongest team, with the strongest roster in Italy, and the highest paid, right? And the highest payroll to match. Thrown into Arsenal, whom, correct me if I'm wrong, are probably in the third, fourth, or fifth overall in those categories. It's going to be. I think he may be forced to make a decision as to whether what to focus in on. I.e., maybe he will choose the league over, or performance in the league, or achievement in the league objective over the domestic cup or the domestic cups and Europa League if it comes to that. So he's a kind of a calculating man. He's someone who's a pragmatist, who is a procrastinator, but in the good sense, because procrastination in Italian actually has a positive spin on it. So he'll kind of wait at the right moment in order to make the changes. He's a man that understands the moments in a game. He's not someone who's going to go out, have a team go gangbusters on you, and expect that kind of intensity for 90 minutes. This is not PlayStation. He realizes you're not playing a video game.
And here's where I pretty much fell in love with the guy. I was actually in Milan. We just checked into our hotel, and we were watching the Juve-Tottenham game, which we have a vested interest in almost as much as you did.
Right. For the same side.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And Tottenham were winning 1-0, and I think there were some tactical changes that were made, both personnel and formation. Although, again, I wasn't really watching that closely because we were literally checking into our hotel. And the game turned on its head. The thought is Arsene Wenger's, one of his weaknesses that he's been kind of accused of is that he just does not make tactical changes to the opponent and in the middle of the game. And there are those who can point to situations where he's done that, and I'm not claiming he never does it, but it doesn't seem to be his strength to game plan for a specific opponent or to change things up and know how to tweak things in the middle of the game. It's almost like send the thing out there, they should be able to get it done, and then, oh my God, how did we not get it done? I mean, would you agree that he's pretty good at moving on the fly and making the changes that he needs to and kind of conducting the team through a game?
To be honest, no one is infallible in that category. Being a pragmatist and being someone who, as I said, understands the moments of the game, understands, there's a certain time in a match where, second half, you're in the middle of it. When you got a hit, you need a goal, you need two, you need 20 minutes. You understand the player needs to get in there, and get acclimatized to the match and to the speed of the match and change it. He understands those things. So I would say yes, and I would give you a soft yes. He's that game in particular, and of course, every change, every management decision comes within a specific context, right? So in that game right there, I think both of our wingers were not in a good spot, and he changed both of them to bring on a Samoa, who was born a mezzala, which is like a holding midfielder of sorts, and was adapted by Conte as a wing back, and now was playing as a full back. So he brought a Samoa and Lichtsteiner on the other wing. Basically all he did was change up his back wings, right, his full backs. But that turned out to look like a genius move. It was to his credit, part luck, part good move, because he really had no other choice than to make those two changes. But having said that, he generally is someone who reads, who when he makes these substitutions, it's well thought out, right? If I think about another match more recently, the one against Real Madrid, he held back on bringing on, I believe it was Cuadrado. He was trying to bring him on against Real Madrid late in the game. With the plan was to bring him on in the extra time. And of course, then there was no extra time thanks to a very late call in the match.
Yeah.
So, but I could understand what he was doing. Everyone was expecting that change to happen, and he wanted to make that change happen right at the right time. It's like hitting your friction point when you're driving a standard car, right? You have to hit it. You have to hit it correctly, otherwise your gear is not going to go in, right? You're not going to be able to switch your gear correctly. So he's a man that understands that. He's definitely not a one-way kind of coach. I think I don't know if Arsene Wenger's football was like, or Arsene Wenger as a coach was Guardiola-like in that sense, that he has one style of football, there's a one-way street. We keep playing this way, and we pass the ball, and we get the horizontal play, and it looks beautiful. And in the end, we'll tap it. We tap it in because we just completely destroy with our gameplay. We destroy our adversary. If that was it, I find that is the typology of coach that plays that ends up sticking to his guns no matter what, stubbornly. I think Allegri, as a pragmatist, is a lot more likely to change on the fly.
Well, and not necessarily in the 70th minute with the first substitution either, which is another Arsene Wenger thing. So one of the areas, and the last one I think from your article that we'll touch on was that you had talked about how he deals with young talent. And at Arsenal, we've seen some very promising young talent come through, both through the Arsenal program, the academy, like a Bellerin and Ainsley Maitland-Niles and others, and we've seen some come in through purchases like Callum Chambers and a few others, and I should add Iwobi to the previous list. And oftentimes you see a strong start followed by a long stagnation and a regression, and you just wonder what kind of counsel they're getting, whether they're being put into the fire too soon, losing their confidence and being destroyed for a year or two. And it's always just been a concern for me under the Wenger administration, if you will. So you had some interesting, almost kind of like duplicity comments about Allegri, about how he deals with young talent in ways that can benefit them, but also frustrate supporters. So tell us a little bit more about what we can expect if Allegri comes with some of our younger talent.
I think sometimes it comes down to football culture. And I've noticed that, I've been following football for about 30 years. And in my time I've noticed that there's a tendency to throw a player into action sometimes the second that he gets transferred, like the next day after he gets transferred. He does Allegri with both new transfers as well as young talent. and when I mean young, I mean 22, 23, the players that definitely, have the stuff, have what it takes, but it's just the small adjustments that are needed, or environmental adjustments. They need to adjust to the environment around them, and Allegri is not one that is going to throw in a player right off the bat. So if I think from a footballing culture standpoint, there might be a bit of expectations there that may not be met vis-a-vis.
Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting dynamic. Arsenal fans are known for, especially groups of Arsenal fans are known, and I fall victim to this sometimes, known for thinking they kind of know more than the manager at times. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to bring in a guy who with a proven track record, I think we need to be very careful not to expect anything other than what you have to almost just suspend what you think and just let him be and do his thing, because the things you're describing, not playing transfers right away, having people who just suddenly fall out of the lineup for a period of time, those are the things that draw the most ire towards Wenger. And it's just going to be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see how Arsenal supporters specifically, among, Premier League supporters, which are generally impatient, but Arsenal at the top of the heap, how they would handle that sort of thing. But how does it affect the talent itself?
Well, let me tell you, the experience that I've seen with two good examples, and one example of somewhat of a failure, let's say, maybe a slower starter. So we've seen in both the cases of Alvaro Morata, who came in from Real Madrid, came in at Juventus. His first 3 months, you barely even knew he played for us. He would get 5 minutes at the end of a game. In a very similar way, Paulo Dybala would come in, get a little piece of the game here and there, and I think held the record for a number of substitutions during the league that year. But come January, the first 3 months, Christmas, after Christmas, they come back and, they have a cracker of a game. He's, again, someone who, in that way, I think understands timing. There was another example. There was Rugani, who was a central defender. Again, different kind of role, right? He's not an attacker. Maybe more experience was needed, he felt. Threw him in, not right away, but still gave him the same type of treatment coming in after in January, and still maybe didn't see the strong performance that he was expecting. Or there was just so much depth at Juventus that he couldn't break that lineup. So, he's definitely someone who's not going to take your 19-year-old who comes off.
All right.
Who came off the bench to score a goal in the FA Cup game and put him on Sunday because all of a sudden he's a superstar, right? He will definitely relegate him back to the bench as per the as most balanced people would expect. So I think that there will be a bit of a culture clash that Allegri would be dealing with coming in, but generally he is someone who has had a positive track record at nursing talent, younger talent, like early 20s, into getting the full value out of them. Another example, looking back a few years, was, if we think back of the best year that Balotelli had, was at Milan under Allegri. He's someone who had come from ups and downs at Inter and Manchester City, etc., and came into Milan in the second half of the season, in January, and just ripped up the league. A lot of his goals were penalties, that much I remember, but their goals, he scored a lot of goals nonetheless, and you got a lot of really good performances out of him.
Nice.
Excellent. So that's a great wrap-up. And if you haven't read the article yet, go to Italian Football Daily. I've tweeted out the link a couple times. I tweeted out with our request for user questions today, and we'll allow you at the end certainly to let us know where we can find you on Twitter and the articles. But it just really opened my eyes. Like, hey, we need to actually learn about this person instead of just what we, when we occasionally just kind of hone in on, oh, hey, Juventus is really good. We should probably get this guy. So it's great to hear your feedback on that. And we have listeners who want to get your feedback as well. So we have some user questions, about six or seven of them. You want to take the first one, Andy?
Yeah, I will.
From a new questioner. We love getting new people to ask questions.
Yeah, so this is from David Russell, a.k.a. the Gunner Down Under. And it kind of alludes to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. If Allegri comes, do you think he will insist on bringing most of his backroom staff? And are you tenured enough to kind of walk us through who his staff is and kind of what roles they play within the Juventus setup?
Yeah, I would assume that by and large he is looking to bring on his entourage, at the very least his assistant coach, who actually is just a man that you see there.
Is that Landucci?
Time. Lucci, that's right. You see him there, and he's just you never even hear him speak. You never, unlike under Conte, you see Alessio all the time, and you had Carrera there too, as
Who does this sound like, Andy?
Right.
Very, very visible.
Yeah, we have an assistant coach who he used to play for us, and we've still never heard him speak.
This man Lucci is even quieter than him, but you can tell he's his right hand man. He listens to him. He's a really good advisor for him, and he's rather new because for the longest time at Milan, Tassotti was the second coach, no matter who the coach was, who the head coach was, and as far as his other backroom staff, I think there has been a bit of a change in that department, and maybe I don't know if his physical prep guy would come along, because Allegri has a very particular physical preparation regimen. Unlike Conte, who would batter his roster at the beginning of every season with very complex and very intense kind of prep and workouts in order to make sure that they were ready come the beginning of the season. Allegri is very light on that, with the understanding that the team will have to go far, and if you're going to beat up your men right at the beginning, they're going to run out of steam fairly quickly. So excellent. I think by and large the answer is we would expect him to bring in a top entourage. From what I recall, the last time when he came in to replace Conte, most of the staff left along with Conte, or just were let go, with the exception of the goalkeeping prep guy, because he had a really good relationship and rapport with the goalkeepers at the time, and specifically with Buffon. So there's a very specific reason why that happened.
Great.
Well, and there's a whole heck of a lot of positions available at Arsenal now for a new backroom staff as well.
And then a question from Texas Gooner. He asks, what type of setup would you foresee Allegri deploying at Arsenal with the given personnel available, and if he's appointed? So, per your example, he likes a 4-3-1-2. Would that suit an Ozil playing behind Lacazette and Aubameyang type of setup, or where do you see him deploying a number 10 of Ozil's caliber?
Mm-hmm. So, honestly, when it comes to tactics, Allegri is very true to his core. Again, a pragmatist. He doesn't have a set kind of thing. I foresee, if Allegri gets installed as a manager at Arsenal, I foresee Allegri having a go-to, not so much a go-to but a go-to formation that is styled or fashioned after some of the veterans. So he would start with veteran players, and whatever he can muster with veteran and their existing players, that that he trusts and that trusts him, then that's how he's gonna fashion his team right off the bat. So when he was installed at Juve, he started with a 3-5-2, which is what Conte had going for them, even though 3-5-2 is not his go-to formation. He eventually was able to, like a tailor, kind of sew together his team, fashion his team, tailor-make his team to something that was more traditionally Allegri-like. So we've seen at Milan him play with a Christmas tree formation, if you will, so 4-3-2-1. And at Juventus, he eventually deployed a 4-3-1-2 to then bring about a more, quote, European format or Champions League format type team, which formation we saw 4-2, so it's 2 holding midfielders, 3 attacking midfielders, and a forward. So, which is kind of similar to a lot of the formations that I've noticed Arsenal deploy in the last part of the season. So there shouldn't be too steep of a learning curve, I don't think.
Except we have no
Arsenal players. And frankly, I think that someone like Ozil, Allegri would say that someone like Ozil could play anywhere with any team in the world because of just his immense talent. And it's just, and his theory of football is not so much pigeonholing players into a specific formation, rather it is putting them in the conditions to excel. Because and you said something similar to this, because at the end of the day, players are the ones that make the difference. You know, Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi get paid so much because of their immense talent. It's our job to make sure that they express it to the fullest.
Andy, are you finding that you're just getting more and more erect as we hear more and more about Allegri, or is it just me?
You know it.
Is it just me?
You know what, Mike?
I meant to say aroused, actually.
The guy takes
it came out erect.
Everything that the guy has done at every club he's been at, he's been a success. And we have a great team, a great stadium, a global brand. He's the manager that will put us in the semifinals of a Champions League. And He's young. He's just the right guy.
I just like I like the potential that I'm hearing and just the change. If and it shouldn't matter really, but if our fan base can just chill for 3 years and let him do his thing, I understand the lack of patience over the last 8 years with Arsene Wenger. I've felt it too, but in this case, just give it some time because I like the philosophy coming from him. But we do have a few more user questions. One from Andy Allegrandi Gixer from the Juve team. Which player? And see, now we're just rating Juve all of a sudden. I mean, we've gone past hiring him, and now we're just rating the team for transfers. This is typical Arsenal right here. Which player would Allegri most likely bring with him, if any? And this always happens. We got the biggest and best example of this is Marouane Fellaini going to Manchester United with David Moyes. I mean, that worked out brilliantly for them. But is there anyone that you could foresee being interested in following Allegri to Arsenal?
Honestly, I don't. I don't foresee any for a few reasons.
Poor taste.
I mean, I just don't see. No. I mean, it happens. It happens all the time, and I could see theoretically a player from a smaller market like Serie A moving to a bigger market like the EPL, along with the coach. But I just don't see that type of player that would go along and that would feel that would be the right move for them at this point, considering the type of the kind of players that are currently at Arsenal and the kind of players that are currently at Juventus. I mean, the only one that really comes to mind that has that might do that, that Arsenal might even want. I would say Dybala.
Oh God, that's even better. I didn't think you were even going to go there.
Out of all of them, right?
I just finished.
Yeah.
Ready, Andy?
Yep.
All right. Just basically two-part final question, and thank you. We've had some technical difficulties, so if it was a little bumpy after you said Dybala might come, would be the only one. I will admit that I had an explosion and it ruined the soundboard that we used. Why would he come to Arsenal versus Chelsea if the Chelsea job is open? And that being said, who, including Allegri, would you prefer be at the helm of Juve come next season?
Okay, why would he come to Arsenal instead of Chelsea? To be honest, I don't think that there is a particular affinity, and I don't mean to anger the Gunner fans, but I don't think that there's a particular affinity of Allegri to Arsenal. I'm just jogging my memory right now, just trying to think of any of his past, if there's any particular reason why he would prefer them over.
Yeah, I mean, we're all getting worked into a frenzy because
right?
we think he wants to go to London, but there's another team that's likely to be looking for a manager that's in London.
Right. And the other thing is, it's like, I've had Antonio Conte open for me already at Juventus. Why not follow that up again, right? Show him how it's done. Definitely that would be a very, very entertaining kind of scenario. I think for the benefit of the Premiership's appeal, I would love to see Allegri at Arsenal and Conte keep his job at Chelsea, and just watch the two because there has been a bit of a duel, a Cold War between the two. So yeah, definitely would be very, very tasty to see that unfold. If any reason why Arsenal over Chelsea, because Arsenal's ready. Arsenal's ready right now, and Chelsea currently has the situation that's still up in the air. Allegri is the type of coach that is that likes to have a lot of time to plan ahead, and has called for a lot of reforms that have later taken shape with respect to timing, with respect to timing of transfer windows, because he likes to have his team full roster or as full a roster available as soon as possible in order to plan the season out properly and the preseason preparation, etc. So that to me means that he would find the Arsenal solution more appealing because the Arsenal job is open right now. And while the Chelsea job might be open, we feel it's open, right? Abramovich may know 100% sure if it's open or not, but it's one of those situations where I think on a personal level, and considering the specific context, Allegri would prefer an Arsenal type situation to walk into. And as far as Juventus, who would I want instead of Allegri at Juventus? To be honest, we've had a pragmatist for quite a long time.
Or including Allegri. I mean, would he be the person you want at the club?
No.
Okay.
No,
it's time.
No, I don't. I'm done. I'm done with him. From a very personal standpoint, I don't speak for all Juventus fans. That's for sure. A lot of fans are very happy with what he's done. I'm very happy with what he's done. I'm very appreciative of the work. I think that Conte took us from a 7th place team to a 1st place team, brought the yardsticks forward to a certain level. Allegri was afforded a very different team that Conte was afforded, and brought the team further up in as far as going far in competitions. 4 domestic doubles in a row, which Conte was not able to do. But I think now we're ready for a man to finish the job. If I'm using yardsticks, now I'll use a baseball analogy. We need a closer. It's the 9th inning. We need someone who's not going to let it slip in the final. Someone maybe of European pedigree, could be a gameplay coach, but it has to definitely be a sly SOB who will get the job done in the end and make sure that this damned cup doesn't slip through our fingers once more. So
who's your man? Before we get disconnected, I want to make sure I hear. Or does it compromise you somehow to say that?
I think it somewhat compromises me. It is putting me on the spot, but a gameplay coach. We can have Luis Enrique. There could be Sarri from Napoli, who and I know I'll be burnt at the stake for saying some of these. And there's tons of counter arguments. Jardim from I think he's in Monaco right now.
Monaco. Yeah, this is all hypothetical. We don't want to get like this bad piece of news that somehow we've done something terrible to you.
And you never know. And you never know what's going to happen after the Champions League final, right? With Zidane, might decide to call it a dynasty, right? And say, you know what, maybe it's time for me to either follow the money into the EPL or follow my heart back to Turin.
Absolutely.
So we never know.
It should be an interesting next couple of weeks. I have a feeling everything will be settled and tied up with, if not Monday, not too long after that. And frankly, I hope it is for everybody involved, so that we can start planning for 2018, 2019. So, Rocco, I appreciate you spending the hour with us. It's been better than I even anticipated. More educational and just really, really good to hear from your point of view. You can be reached on Twitter. It's at Catenaccio NA. Is that right? Do we want to spell that out?
That's correct. No need to spell it out.
Okay, Catenaccio, not Catenaccio. I was spelling it wrong when I was trying to get you linked to one of my tweets, but I realized the error of my ways. Catenaccio NA for North America. And look for that article in the Italian Football Daily. We appreciate the time. Thank you very much. Good luck to Juve in the future and to you and I guess to Toronto FC or whatever they're called. Enjoy jibbing.
Thank you very much.
And
we've been doing it. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. He's tearing it up. All right. Well, thank you, and we'll be back late Sunday night after the final home game of the season to wrap up Huddersfield with a first-time guest joining us Sunday night. So stay tuned for that, and come on, you Gooners.